Welcome to the weekly virtual brown bag. Let me pull up our slides that Claudia gave me so I can run through the intro. All right, put it in here, come here. We'll screen it. Now I lost. Now I lost Skype. There it is. All right. So virtual brown bag. That's what we're doing, right? We're basically here to share what is that we're doing, what is we're learning, kind of our thoughts, conversation, what's going on here. There. Maybe I need to do this. How do I? There we go. Um, Now, so everyone who I urge everyone to talk. You don't want to hear me just talk for the entire time. I don't have that many interesting things to say. We do remind you that we are being recorded. Um, it's definitely happened in the past where someone has shared something and they realize that there was something on their desktop they shouldn't have shared, and we have to go in and try to modify videos. So we do put these up on YouTube. Just be careful. It's a pain in the ass for everyone when that happens. Um, what is this meaning? It's really just an opportunity for us, for developers to chat about. Let me bring this back. See, I just did the exact same thing with email. Yeah, fortunately, there's nothing in there. Um, we did. It's an opportunity for developers to chat about what we're doing, what we're thinking about, any tips and tricks, experiences, frustrations. Uh, Basically, kind of building up a community around this. Um, It's every single Thursday at this time, 12. Congratulations for being here. We are on Skype for now. I do realize that lots of people would like something better. We would like something better. It's kind of there is until someone kind of comes through and wants to be a sponsor for Zoom. We haven't really had a lot of impetus to find something else. But of course, if anyone's interested in that, we can. Um, anyone who's anyone who's willing to share anything, talk about anything, ask a question, please open up your mic, type in chat, and we can engage in that conversation. Um, we've shared all sorts of stuff before, right? We talked about user stories, Emacs. Talk about those a lot, right? TypeScript, Pomodoro technique tests, Node, hiring, we were talking about Fable, which is an F Sharp front end framework the other day. Lots and lots of stuff. Not really much in the dev world that I think is off is off limits here. Um, and so, absolutely, if your question is this appropriate to bring up for the dev meeting? It probably is. Um, we have our website. It's right there. You can always refer people to it. There's a Slack. So yeah, let's get started. I am going to stop the presentation now, and I will stop sharing my screen now. How do I do that? Am I sharing my screen now? Guys, am I sharing my screen now? I'm not even sure.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Oh, how do I stop that? Oh, there you go. There's the button. Stop sharing. Cool. Um, so yeah. Does anyone have anything that they want to bring up? Just talk about? Any questions? Anything else? All right. I mean, if nobody has stuff they want to talk about, I certainly have things that I've kind of jotted down. Um, a lot of them we have actually talked about, but I guess so. We got Tony and Shay on there. I know y'all are both kind of looking for jobs. I guess how do y'all feel the hiring market is doing? I'll kind of ask it this way: how does it compare to other times you've looked for jobs, let's say?
Um, okay, so I can tell you that it's improved in the last few months.
Okay.
There seems to be a lot more recruiter activity, and getting a lot more phone calls and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'm getting a lot more of, I would say, lower end recruiters uh,
Mm-hmm.
calling, um, and I don't particularly want those jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and they're fairly annoying because they don't speak English as a first language, so
Mm-hmm.
they kind of miss a lot of the nuances of what I'm saying. Where I might be trying to say no, I'm not interested in a gentler way than just getting upset and hanging up on them kind of thing, but they don't seem to kind of pick up on that.
So you
Um,
have to just be more clear. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Um, but there are some people that are hiring. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I know a couple other people that have been picked up by other companies, but a lot of companies seem to be more uh, particular about what they're actually looking for, right? And
Yeah.
so,
You
you,
mean like as far as specialization or?
for whatever it is that they're looking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and the whole thing with job hunting is, if you get a no, you try and get feedback from them, right? So you can figure out, okay, what can you do to make yourself better for the next opportunity? And a lot of times you're not getting any kind of feedback on
Yeah.
why you heard no, and that's annoying.
Yeah.
Um, but
The,
there's a
the,
lot more remote work out there now than
yeah.
there has been in the past.
Yeah. The feedback thing is rough. And, oh, hey, cool. Jose's joined. Jose just went through a job hunt. So, Jose, we're talking about just kind of how the hiring market, what you feel on how the hiring market is doing right now, and I mean how you can compare it to similar markets in the past. Um, yeah. Um, so I think the thing with nobody giving feedback, I think that that's kind of probably twofold, right? Part of it is the same thing that we've had for the last like 10 years or so. Well, I suspect companies are just afraid of lawsuits, so their legal departments have kind of you know tamped down on like any sort of feedback you can give, which is really disappointing and just really bad for the industry. But also, like, I can understand their point of view because there have been lawsuits because of stuff like that. Um, I'm sure that, but then again, if someone wants to sue you, they can probably find a way to sue you anyway. Um, then, like the other aspect of it, I think is definitely like has to do with the time now when I think with more people applying to everything, that I suspect more companies are just getting buried by resumes. So at least for companies where you don't really get past the interview challenge or the phone screen, or you don't really get to the point where you're talking into like an in-depth interview, I do suspect a lot of the time it's just that they got way higher responses than they anticipated, and are just eliminating as many upfront as they can.
Yeah,
Which, yeah, which is fine. It wastes less of everyone's time, but I really wish they would do that. Like they can just do that up front when you send in the resume. They don't have to like give you a code challenge or a phone screen or other stuff. All right.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think some
Yeah.
of it is really just about trying to manage the avalanche. So if you're someplace like a Facebook and Amazon type of thing, you know, if you get to talk to a recruiter, you'll get to talk to them. The very next thing they're going to do is they're going to have you do the coding challenge or the coding interview, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if they see something they don't like, whatever that is, they just won't, green light you to the next round.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so if you're not good at their kind of uh, their hacker rank algo expert type questions, you're not going to get past the first round of interviews.
Are you seeing a lot of HackerRank type questions?
I've I've seen it from a few companies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I personally I don't like those type of interviews. I like more interviews where I can talk better. I'm not really feeling like I'm under the gun. One of
Mm-hmm.
the I mean, hacker rank and algo expert, those are all interesting, but the thing is I don't quite understand the logic between, having you do a coding challenge with that when you're never going to use that for your tool set at work. If you're pretty much a .NET developer, you're going to use something like Visual Studio or VS Code on the job, but you're not using that for the quote unquote coding challenge, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And I think it's not necessarily, you don't have to necessarily, okay, in my opinion, you shouldn't have to know the syntax all the way down. You know, you have your tools that will kind of help you with that. It's how you actually solve your problem with the tools that you have that I think that's more important. But I'm not the
Yeah.
hiring manager, so take my advice for what it's worth.
Oh, you mean like so you're just talking about specifically like the the experience of using an online code editor. Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely annoying. I think like with stuff like HackerRank, a lot of the times it's because they have this ability, like they're capturing every keystroke, so they have the ability to kind of see how you solved it. I really suspect nobody watches that because, like, if you asked 100 people to do those things, how much time are you spend just watching video of people typing? Like, I don't know. Like, I guess they probably have numbers, but I suspect though if they did their numbers, that if you looked at their numbers, nobody's freaking watching that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they won't give you any feedback. After,
Oh,
like
sure.
with Facebook, if you don't pass their coding challenge, they send an email to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm sorry, we decided not to
Right.
move forward with you. Due to company policy, we can't provide any feedback. Better luck next time.
Yeah. And in that case, yeah, that is a legal thing. Um, yeah. So yeah, and Jose saying like they're watching kind of for top performers. Yeah, and I mean like I get the criticism like, well, this isn't what you do on the job, but I do think like as someone that's hired before and like written interview processes before, how else do you do it, right? There isn't a great way to make someone do something that you do on the job. There's the like paid trial week thing, but first of all, how do you even narrow stuff people down to that? But then
Right.
also, I still think that's a terrible way of doing stuff because normally someone comes on board in your company, you spend how long onboarding them? You
Yeah.
say things like, I don't really expect anyone to, this person to be productive until they've spent a couple weeks to understand our domain. They probably won't commit much of anything until week 3. Like you hear stuff like that all the time, and none of that happens during paid trial week. And also, you're kind of just at the mercy of the fact that the person who's assigning you work happened to estimate it correctly.
Yeah.
Like I did a paid trial week for a company one time where like um they're writing scrapers for a bunch of different insurance sites, and like so they had written a bunch of them. They had one more scraper they needed to write, and they kind of assigned it to me. And a couple days in, it became obvious that the way this site worked was nothing at all like any of the other sites I had done worked. None of those patterns, none of those templates were useful. Like some of the data they wanted wasn't even really like available without like natural language parsing. And it's just like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to get this done. And it's just because you didn't know. Like I understand that, and, like this could be like a whole negotiation back and forth where we talk through it, and I kind of decided by that point I didn't really want that particular job anyway. but but yeah, that like there isn't a good way of doing it. So I do feel um for people who create those interviews. My personal thing is the best way to do a code challenge is online with the interviewer like like on a screen share, because at the very least then you can use your own tools if you want, and also the interviewer is guaranteed to be investing at least as much time in it as you are. You're
Yeah.
also likelier to get feedback. But even that's not perfect, because like lots of people say like they're extra nervous and something like that.
Yeah.
And you really, really have to work hard to put people at ease. It sucks. And then, of course, how do you even get someone to that step? Like without coach challenges, how do you pick the people that you want to interview?
Yeah.
And when you get like 100 resumes for one position, then I don't have a great answer for that. So,
Yeah.
you know,
I don't know. I haven't been on the
yeah,
interviewer side and given a thumbs up, thumbs down on people to hire kind of thing. Uh, I've I've had fairly good luck with being able to pick good people out without
yeah,
necessarily coding challenges, right?
right,
Um,
yeah.
so
But yeah, yeah, and I like doing that because like you work your communities, you know who the good people are, but that locks some people out. Like all the people, all the boot camp grads I work with get locked out by that sort of thing. And like, yeah, they have to network, but then networking is nothing but bias. So
yeah,
it's rough. Like you want there to be some standardized way of doing it. And then like you talk to people from other industries and like, and they're like, you're lucky you even have that. Like people in other industries are like, oh, you have coding tests and you have actually some objective measure. You're way ahead of us. So I
yeah.
don't think anyone has this figured out, unfortunately. Um,
Well, I
yeah,
don't think there's any candidate that you're going to get that's just going to be able to drop into a company and immediately know how everything works, unless
right,
they've worked there before,
right,
right? So if you're looking, I'd say the perfect candidate doesn't exist. I think you're better off looking for somebody that you can train, that you can train up, you know,
hmm
to do whatever it is that you need them to do. Um,
but when that answer is sure, lots of people, and you've got 100 resumes in front of you, you still have to pick one, right?
true,
Yeah,
true.
and how do you filter for the one you can train best? I don't
Well,
know either. Yeah,
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 but if so, it's
I,
difficult looking at it from the
yeah,
interviewee side to the interviewer side, right? Because
no,
you know what you can do,
right,
right? That other
absolutely,
company doesn't know what you can do, and if you
right,
come off bad in that interview for whatever reason, either maybe you're having a bad day or um, something like that.
yeah.
It's
You
just
haven't used done that exact problem before, or you haven't used this exact interface before, right? Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Um, yeah, and I mean I appreciate scoring. I mean I always do a scoring system. I appreciate it that in that it at least helps moderate some bias and gives you a framework in which you can talk about the candidate. Right? You
mm,
can say, okay, well this person got a 2 in front of art in terms of architecture skills versus this other one that got a 1, and then this but they also got a 2 in back end development skills whereas this other person got like a 3, right? Like that's a useful framework in order to talk about an individual's skills, right?
right.
Because otherwise you're just like kind of cherry picking memories. um but yeah, so I like scoring systems. I do think that they're misused for filtration a lot of the time, and I will say I think that that's probably like the hacker rank. So I don't like giving hacker rank style solutions for interviews for all the obvious reasons, but at the same time, like I do like doing them, and I'm actually pretty good at them because I do play around with them and like doing them. But I think the idea there is that the people that do well on that are going to be by and large the people that have solid fundamentals and therefore are easier to train. I mean, I think that's what the theory is supposed to be. Um, and obviously, it misses it gets a ton of both false positive and false negatives. And I don't love it, but I can understand that reasoning, right? I mean, because other than that, you're going into like how do you move a mountain with a teaspoon sort of territory.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
I, think,
What do you want?
I agree. I think the issue just
Yeah.
is there's so many people out there, and how do you know, go through each one of the people and,
Mhm.
and do the minimum amount of due diligence on each person without wasting a bunch of time. You
Mhm.
know, it you do end up with this impersonal kind of interview process that is really no fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a friend that when he hires, he has a video game company. When he hires like more junior people, he like just mass sends everyone out like an actual test that he wrote. And he's like, okay, and he's like, take this test on computer programming about what I think is important, and like people have to turn this test in like in school, and I'm like, man, that's so like unhuman and weird and not really what they're doing. And he's like, I gotta filter down these resumes somehow.
Yeah.
Right, right,
Well,
like,
the other thing too is that I think you only want to hire people that want to work for you, right? It, and
yeah, I
I
don't
think
know about that so much, but yeah.
well, I mean, if if I'm hiring somebody, right, and they're going to turn around and leave, a week or two later because they didn't really want to work for me, you know, um, then I've wasted my time hiring you.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, but I don't. But how do you select for someone who? So it's not that you're hiring for someone um that wants to work for you. It's you're hiring for someone who isn't looking to better deal you at every moment, which is a little different. And how the hell do you even pick for that, right? Because
yeah,
yeah, hiring for someone that's just very enthusiastic about it is a hiring for people that can fake it well, and b hiring for people that like are going to burn out and don't know how to chill. So that's
yeah.
almost counterproductive. Um, yeah, it's rough. Um, Jose, do you not have a mic? Like you feel free to turn it on and kind of talk about this. Yeah, so personally, when I was at Surge, we did have the fortunate situation where we had, because we were a contracting firm, we placed people with clients. We would have client, well, whenever we're hiring someone, we had like very specific criteria that would come to us from the client, and sometimes they were dumb criteria we'd have to push back, but they would at least give us like, okay, here are the skills we need, and we're not gonna, and it's not a matter of training or not, we're just not gonna bring on someone without that doesn't have these things on their resume and can talk about them intelligently. So then we'd have like recruiters go and just find people like that, and then the recruiters would give like a 5 minute, you know, like phone screen with them to make sure that they weren't completely nuts,
Yeah.
um, which some still slip by, and then it was right into an interview, and one interview and you're done, was because it's not this huge commitment for us, and also we're just looking for the first person. We're not looking for like, oh my god, the right person. We're looking for the first person that the client would be happy with. So and that is a different situation. So fortunately, I haven't had to face the filtration issue too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Jose.
must be nice if you're not changing jobs all that much, and you don't have to keep interviewing at all these companies and things like that. But
Yeah.
sometimes COVID happens.
COVID happens. Yeah. Uh, So Jose says, I was asked one time what would be my ideal company to hope to, or what type of companies I'm looking to work for. And the answer was always a company that allowed me to learn and grow, which is true. Like, that's what you're supposed to say, kind of. But also, that's the answer that everyone's saying. So that means you don't stand out. But yeah, you want to like learn, grow, you want to keep working. And I think that that's what drives a lot of developers, that as long as they're learning and working, as long as they're learning, that's good. But there's also plenty of developers, like there's a person going through our boot camp right now who's like asking me, and he's talking exclusively in what he said. Hold on, Jose says, what I'm trying to say is that at this stage most companies just want to work. Oh, most people want to work. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I agree. I'm one of those people.
Yeah, what I was trying to say, So I have people that are like talk about this stuff exclusively in terms of like earnings potential, right? And is there really anything wrong with that? I mean, probably not, because just because someone's interested in money doesn't mean they're looking to better deal you necessarily all the time. Doesn't mean that they're not going to be a great benefit to a company. So I would almost not even eliminate people. I think it's it's an interesting thing to know about why someone wants to work for you, but it's also like not the sort of thing that we should eliminate people for, probably.
Yeah,
It,
I
yeah.
agree. Many times, whenever I get that question, so what do you look for in a company? And basically, first thing that pops in my mind is a paycheck, because that's what I need right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to address the needs that I have on my end,
Yeah.
um, and everything else that is kind of secondary after that, right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
now, if I had a job and I was looking for a new job, then I wouldn't say I'm just looking for a paycheck, right? Because I already have a paycheck.
That's a
So,
really interesting point, though. Yeah, that answer is going to be different depending on your situation.
right.
And if you're only going for people who don't list paycheck as one of the top things, then yeah, you're going for people who are lying or people who already have jobs, which is just screwing everyone over. Man.
Well, but you know
Yeah.
what? That could also be another filter for you too, right? Is is this person already employed? So if
Right.
he's employed, then that tells you at least that somebody can stand the person, right?
Maybe. But
Hey,
yes. All right. Low filter, but yeah. I mean, I would say it's also could be a filter in the sense like, is this person tactful enough not to say, "Oh, it's about the paycheck"? But is that really so? And I mean, some bosses would absolutely care about that, right?
yeah,
They want you to be tactful, and some people might not. Yeah, and yeah, and Jose mentions entry level. For someone who's entry level, it's more about breaking into the industry. Paycheck is secondary. For someone that's that's looking to emigrate, it's more about the visa.
yeah,
Paycheck is secondary. So they're yeah, I think people don't really appreciate the very wide range of circumstances that come for that. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Um, yeah. I so as far as how the hiring market is doing overall, my impression is I will say I do also think it's picked up. I think when lockdown started, well, it started for us in New Orleans a little bit earlier, like about 2 weeks earlier, 3 weeks earlier than it did for everyone else. But when it started, it kind of kept going for a couple of weeks. I felt like, in fact, the grad that earned the most money out of the gate we've ever had got a job after lockdown was announced. We're all very proud of her, but yeah, and then it definitely just like seemed to drop. But like that was actually kind of hard for me to tell because it was also because my view on that was entirely people who are first entering into the industry and starting their job hunt. It could have also been because they were just not experienced at hunting for jobs. And then like the last month, I've definitely seen a bunch more people landing jobs. Still not everyone. It's still the people that hustle the most. So people that have applied to like hundreds of jobs and are really working and really understand that your cover letter is a sales tool and not a. So I keep saying like it's not a matching thing where like these are the things that you said you need. I have these things. Da, 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 check marks, checks boxes, checks. No, that's not how anyone does sales. It's not how your cover letter is a sales document about selling yourself. Like that's how you do it, right? You go to a car dealership, they don't run through a checklist with you of what you need in a car. Here's the cars that we have. Um, Especially because everyone's going to say they have all those things, otherwise they wouldn't be applying.
Yeah.
I feel like I also feel like it's picking up. I've definitely seen a lot more. Seen no, I've seen significantly more solicitations for like for positions. It still is mostly people are looking for senior people. but that at least gives me hope that like a lot of the more senior people are starting to land somewhere, which will, you know, when you have senior people starting getting situated, that starts opening up more opportunities for mid-level and junior people as those senior people need help and can lead teams and so on. Um, it's probably going to be tough for another couple months for junior and mid-level people, because the senior people don't know what the heck's going on, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's look at this job market going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to have a fourth quarter slowdown
Yes.
in hiring? And
Always.
so, do you think it's going to be worse or about the same? Is it,
My impression is that there's always a fourth quarter slowdown in hiring. Number one, because the holidays, who's going to start someone and onboard them during the holidays. Number two, because demand for contractors plummets as everyone's trying to close out their Q4 with more money, and demand contractors plummets, and there's more people on the market looking, right, and more people are getting let go. Um, yeah, I think Q4 is like once you get into November, there's absolutely going to be a slowdown. It might. I don't know. Is it going to be worse? Probably. I have no idea. But like, probably worse because COVID makes everything worse.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to worry about people being out of the office, traveling and things like that. So, and that's usually one of the things that slows that down is you have all the
That's
decision makers go on vacation.
that's true. But I mean, like, also you still have to like do onboarding and things. But yeah, you're right. That factor might not be as powerful. But everyone's still going to be looking at their books and wanting to show that the Q4 everything ticked up, total profits ticked upwards and stuff like that, and you know, slowing down hiring is still the way to do that because you're cutting expenditures. Especially because no one's getting hired, and then like making such a huge contribution to profits right away within the first few months. So, yeah, I hadn't even thought of that, but yeah, that's an important aspect of it. Um, However, it does seem like people are slowly getting into the habit of understanding how to work with this stuff. I mean, you are getting like more and more companies trying who are still kind of confused about whether they want to do remote or not remote or how they want to do it. But the fact that that confusion is visible means that it's getting sorted out, whereas before it wasn't. Right? It was just you just they weren't hiring anyone. They weren't talking about it at all. So yeah. All right. Cool. Anyone want to talk about hiring more? Or want to move past it?
Well,
Yeah.
this is kind of related to that. How would you go from uh, being a developer, like, a team lead kind of thing, across to like management?
I mean, I can tell you how I did it. Um, so for me, I was working at Surge. I was a contractor at Surge, and partially because I had been involved in like previous versions of this meeting since like 2008, right? We had, I started, we kind of had a nub of one already, but like I basically took over our company-wide developer meeting, and like so I kind of started running it, and I would find the speaker constantly every single week, and like do pick up presentations myself when need be, and kind of worked into building that up into an interesting thing that people want to attend. And then um because I was working on that, like I in general started getting more and more involved into building the community at Surge and figuring out and like just started proposing to my manager, to the management, be like, you know what, we should kind of have a mentoring program, right? Where and like wrote up a big document, be like, this is how it should work. This is my vision of it. use this as a starting point and be like, okay, nobody wants to administer it, I'll administer it, I'll run it. And I just kind of took all that stuff on. And then basically when in around 2016, like I was talking to a startup and I like told them I was going to leave, that's when they were like, well, we want to make you a director and just keep doing the same stuff that you've been doing. So I think part of that is like you could just start doing stuff that you feel needs to be done, and then you get recognition for it. I guess that was the path. I mean, that's obviously doesn't help when you're not at the job already, but I think in that case you just apply, I suppose. I mean, yeah, I've never really been in a explicitly management interview, so I don't even really know what they ask, but it can't be anything other than just like talking about people and your experiences, right? It's not like there's anything technical to get into.
Yeah.
Hey, Claudio.
Hello.
Hey, Claudio.
We're talking about hiring, and kind of the question in front of us is, how do you make the transition into management? So I kind of told my experience with that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Making the transition to management.
Right. Or in popular industry terms now, from individual contributor to person leader. That's...
Think about it.
Oh.
That's such a deep question.
I mean, it's a short answer. You get hired to do it, but...
Yeah, but how do you get hired to do it?
Yeah.
Do you have to have experience? And if you have to have experience, how do you get experience?
I think a lot of people do go that MBA route for that reason, though, right? They're like, well, I have this piece of paper, I have these letters by my name, and that is what gives me the permission to start applying to those jobs. But I feel like I almost don't see those jobs posted as much, right?
You haven't been hanging out on LinkedIn lately, have you? Because there's a bunch of software development manager listings that come up, you know.
People hang out on LinkedIn? All right.
Well, I go through it at least once a day. So
yeah, if you're job searching, absolutely, yeah.
You know, I'm having a hard time because I really do see two different things. There is the manager and there's the leader. Many times they play, you know, both roles, and many times there's like, no, this guy only manages people, and this is the guy who's actually leading people. I see those as two different things. Am I the only one?
No, I agree with that. My experience in powerlifting and working with some of these collegiate powerlifting teams, you have people that have the title, right? They're the president, they're the vice president, they're an officer. And then you have the people on the team who are unelected, but they're leaders. You know, everybody on the team looks up to them.
Exactly.
So.
And that's actually one of the reasons why I have a whole problem with this whole divide that the industry seems to have made. I got in the job market in last October, and like everyone was asking me, do you want to be individual contributor or not? And I was like, I don't understand what these terms mean. I've never heard them before. When did this happen? And then I was like, how is anyone an individual contributor? You say you're an agile shop. No one can be an individual contributor. But I'm like, I understand what they're talking about now, but like, yeah, that's one of the reasons I don't like it, because it was never a very clear distinction to me in my mind, where it's just the person that did the leadership stuff. But I get what they're saying. It's like, it's the person who actually, you know, has control of promotions, who's in charge of it's not like management and leadership doesn't come with its own very difficult set of responsibilities.
Right.
I've never thought of it in those terms at all. Yeah. Actually, Kent Beck had something really interesting about this the other day. He left Facebook recently, and he's doing, and he's actually moved into more management role at a company and do mentoring and stuff like that. He was talking about how his view of managers has changed. I don't have the article up, but it's worth taking a look at and reading. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, probably just apply is the way to do it, and not get picked and have an uphill path because you don't have an MBA and don't have previous experience, but eventually it comes through. I mean, Tony, in your case, you actually have a ton of experience, so that probably would work for you a lot. Have you tried just applying?
No, I haven't tried applying to those different jobs, but I've been a team lead a couple times in my career, and I enjoyed it. I just haven't found another opportunity to kind of jump back into that type of position.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It was just a question I was curious about. So, because like I said, they're hiring senior level people right now, and you can clearly see that, right? Or they're at least trying to talk to senior level people.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes sense. Yeah, it's hard, and I mean, like, honestly, like, I'm trying to think, like, every manager that I've ever trying to think of any manager that I know that I've worked with, and admittedly, I've worked with like in like very flat organizations with very few managers, but like, I don't know of a single one that was hired through a job posting. It was always like through a connection or through network, and like they knew someone that recommended them for a position. Yeah.
The best jobs I've ever had have always been through connections.
Yeah.
Right. So whether it's through, most of my connections have all been through user groups in the Houston area, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those have always kind of resulted in the best jobs that I think I've had. So yeah, it's a lot easier to do it that way than it is to just try and strike out on your own and break into another group that's out.
Yeah, like that's such a double-edged sword, because like people will very rightfully complain that getting jobs through connections is biased and it's so biased, and it leaves so many people out in the cold, and it's exactly like people be like, it's the thing that's wrong with capitalism. They don't really mean capitalism. They really mean like the fact that certain people that certain classes of people can get have an easier time, and like, yes, that's all true, but at the same time, you're like the guidance for actually hiring people is hire someone you trust, but what sort of process is anyone proposing other than going with people you know? Right.
I think that's how humans build trust. It's people who you know, right?
Right.
There's no other way to instantly kind of gauge somebody's level of trustworthiness without actually talking to them, interacting with them over a prolonged period of time.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So that's interesting stuff.
Yeah, I'm here like trying to catch up.
What'd you do your lunch and learn on today, Claudio?
Code review. Essentially, like the approach that I've been taking to code reviews, which goes along with this whole discussion on like managing and being a leader, where I'm like, in my mind, I'm seeing this separation where like a manager would say, well, we do code review because that's just part of the policy that we have in place. Whereas a leader would be more like, well, I use code review to make sure that we find opportunities for, the team to grow together. So when we are doing code review, like, and this is an example that I bring up, it's like, well, okay, I'm not a big JavaScript guy. So when I'm reviewing somebody else's code in JavaScript, I'm going to use that opportunity for me to learn things that I don't know, or to also let the author of the code to say, hey, man, I'm reviewing your code. It looks good, but I don't quite understand what's going on there. Maybe we have to dial back a little bit on being, idiomatic with the language and write it in a way that the rest of the team will also understand, so that you don't have that one rock star developer who knows all the intricacies of the language, but nobody else on the team can actually maintain the code. Not because the code is bad, but because it's too smart. So that's where I'm like seeing, okay, there's the manager, there's the leader. I probably lean way more towards the being a leader if we look at it that way, right?
Mm-hmm. So I think the key with manager is that you, at least in theory, have some power around hiring, firing, promotions, money, and like, and even if not, maybe you have a discretionary budget. At the very least, if you don't have that, then you have some power in terms of setting company strategy, right? Like,
okay,
I think that's kind of the key there, because otherwise, yeah, like you're just focused around a team. You're not focused around the company then.
right.
And I guess, yeah, that's a team leader, project manager, or whatever.
So how do you see, like, okay, the manager, has the power of hiring, firing, and all that. Where does the employee's growth come into place? Is the manager empowering the employee to, grow within the company, or is that not something the manager should be looking at?
So I think the manager's role is overall health of the company. Having employees grow within the company is presumably a benefit. If the employees' growth within the company is not going to contribute to the overall health of the company, then maybe it's not worth it. Maybe this isn't the position for them. Then I could understand the manager making the argument that, like, that, well, okay, in that case, no, we're like, that I'm not going to invest in their growth or whatever, because that's not going to contribute everything to the company. I think usually it does, because at the very least, you don't want people to leave, right? Because that's a pain in the ass for everyone. So I don't think that's usually a non-issue, but I could see some situations where you wouldn't necessarily be doing like plans for everyone to grow. So,
Right.
especially when there's not a lot of places to grow into, which is what happens, right? People stall out, and you're like, yeah, I'm sorry that this is where you are then, right?
Okay.
I don't plan to grow anymore.
The best managers I've worked for have been similar to like fullbacks, right? They're not actually the ones carrying the ball. That's the people that are working under them, right? But your job is, you're the lead blocker, right? Mm-hmm. So you're trying to free up your people to do the job, right? And you kind of end up taking a bunch of crap, but it's better than having, your people getting tackled for a loss, right?
Oh yeah, like the one guy I can think of that I've worked with that was just like, I will recommend him to CEO anything. Was like, he was amazing at it. Like, I would see emails he would write to clients like that like were being difficult, and be like, oh my god, every word of this email is just pregnant in meaning, and like, and people would like shape up after talking to him. It was impressive.
Hey guys, just to recognize Jose, I hope I'm getting your name right. He put it on the chat, and then the company look at those leaders to promote them to managers. I guess I would only try to bring people to work with me if I really like the work environment. Otherwise, I would just be probably trying to leave the company. So by default, when someone reach out to you to work with them, is because that person likes his job and work environment.
Yeah, and that's probably true. Or they think that you could help make it someplace that they would like, right?
Right. Well, yeah, because I think, I could see myself like hooking somebody up to a job that I don't necessarily like my job, but the
Mhm.
work environment I do, and I think that this person would fit
Mhm.
that company better, right? Because that could be the case. It's like, oh, I just don't like doing that job. It's not something that I like doing. But I think that guy could actually fit in way better.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, like this, like my working environment sucks right now, but I've worked with this person and they make it a better work environment. That's also a reason why you would try to bring someone in. So it
True.
wouldn't just be that,
Oh,
but yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just back to leaders being promoted to managers, I don't think that's I think that that's a path and a way to do it. I don't think it's necessarily it. Like, not everyone who is a leader would necessarily be a good manager, and I mean, certainly vice versa. Um, yeah, because leader means you have to actually be in the weeds, and I mean, like I know plenty of good managers that are not super technical at all. Like they just understand the high level stuff. Um,
Right.
yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Interesting.
Um, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, So as far as code reviews are concerned, I did want to ask, did you link that article about how to code review like a human? When you talk about that?
Which
All
one?
right.
Wait.
There's a series of articles. There's two of them, I believe, called "How to Code Review Like a Human." Here, I'll pull it up.
All right.
How do here? There's a part one to it and a part two. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay.
Um, and they're really, really excellent, and I highly recommend them if this is like for this sort of thing. I'm surprised you haven't seen you haven't seen it. So
I
yeah,
might have. I mean, it does ring a bell, but
yeah,
it's not. Let me
yeah,
look at it. It does
yeah. So
definitely sound like something I would have read.
yeah, yeah. No, well, it's good. It he really
Yeah.
like kind of breaks it down and like to like what do you want to encourage? What do you want to avoid? Like love this, right? Don't fight over tabs or spaces. That's a stupid thing to stop fight about. Don't comment about like
You
yeah,
know, I just
yeah,
like as I'm skimming over it, like the first
mhm,
two bullet points there, they speak exactly to what the main
yeah,
contents or like how I start my talk.
right,
Communicating issues with to your partner with empathy and understanding, right?
right,
And helping your partner address their weaknesses,
right,
right?
absolutely,
This is key. And I
yeah,
on that talk, I always tell people, look, don't do like I used to do in the past, where whenever I saw something, that was not the way I would do it, I would say, oh, if you are doing that, you are doing it wrong. Like
right,
we love saying that, right? Oh, you're doing it all wrong. That's
mhm,
horrible, right? You are not going to be able to help anybody out that way. You have to, and the point I've been making to people is, understand them first, understand why. I mean, yeah, maybe their code is not up to your quality of code, but why is it? Right?
mhm,
Is it just because you're so smart? Or no, maybe it's like, why is it? Well, maybe the person didn't have enough time to write anything better. Maybe
right,
the requirements given to that person sucked really bad. How do you
mhm,
write good code for shitty requirements? Right?
right,
So you have to understand where that person is coming from to then lay out a hand and say, okay, here, let's collaborate with this and let me show you some ways to make this thing better. Right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I absolutely recommend reading through it. All yes to all of that. I also really like he like in the second article on it. He really kind of talks mostly about like the worst code review he's ever been a part of. So
Oh, yeah.
there's a lot more narrative there and kind of gets into like some really interesting stuff. How like in this like he went to his manager and his manager, I guess his team lead, has the higher level view that this is not this is not like this isn't game theory where the type of game theory where you're just playing one game. This is the type of game theory where you're playing it multiple times, and it's like
you guys are fighting over this. Let this through. Be gracious about it. You will have an opportunity later because this builds up. You can build up trust that you can then bank on later on.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
You don't need perfection. Right.
Exactly.
Which is
because it's one of those. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I'm actually planning to write a blog post that the title is going to be like the search for perfection or whatever, and how I dislike that, because what's perfect today may not be perfect tomorrow, right? You write this like perfect, say, C# code today. A year from now, there is a new version of C# with new language features that will make your perfect code look like crap, right? Yeah. And working with that, I think that's essential.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. Yeah, thanks for pointing out to these posts, man. I'm gonna definitely go through it.
Yep. All right, we are pretty much at time then.
Yeah. Dang it.
That's cool. Got other stuff. No, I came in. I was like, I was gonna like, I'd been, what I did this week. I started teaching at our boot camp, and there was a particular lecture that like about agile and stuff where, like, I read through it before doing it. I was like, I'm not doing this lecture as is because this is not at all how I think about it. So I ended up like writing like a big like outline about like, okay, here's how I think about agile, how I think about management stuff, how I think about user stories. And I was going to talk about that and like put it beside. It's like what we've talked about in the past. User stories is the first thing. I was like, oh, all right, I'm not just going to be ranting about it the entire time. Fine. All right.
Right. Very cool. Well, thanks for getting everything rolling today, George. That's much appreciated.
Yep. It's recorded. Tony, thanks a lot. And yeah, Claudio, I'll talk to you next week.
You bet. You guys have a good one.
Bye, all.